Dave, obviously, I'm sure you would have preferred to have a more a more dominant win on Thursday night. But how good is it to have something to look back on and say, here's the positive, here's the negatives, and be able to kind of be a wake up call for the team going into a big week like this.
Yeah, I think obviously you want to win. That's the bottom line. And we came out of that game healthy. We were able to really test our guys. We didn't know it would be a test like that. You just don't know when you get into games like that what you're going to see. And obviously, some of what we saw is on us. We didn't execute well enough. But what we were able to do was see how our guys handle adversity. So we are tested, and when you have as many new players as we do, new leaders, two of our captains weren't even on our team last year. So you can't test that in a scrimmage. You have to get into games and be in the fire per se. And so I feel great about the fact that we were able to test our roster in a game, win the game, finish really well, and come out healthy. Not happy at all about, some of the things we didn't do well, but that's what the film's about. And, when you come out of a game with a win and your team's healthy and you have a chance to study it. And, for us, we played Thursday, so we got an extra day of recovery, an extra day of film study on ourselves. It's a really valuable opportunity for this team and staff.
As a quick follow up to that, in what ways did you see some of those leaders step up?
Just for Grayson, he's just next play. He doesn't beat himself up on the sideline. He's competitive, yes. He gets mad at himself, but the next play, he's right back in it. He's really able to respond and not react, which was great to see. I thought Davin Van throughout the game just kept talking in a positive way with intensity to the guys on the sideline about what we need to do better and settle in. So you got to see just, it's easy in those situations to respond the wrong way, to go what we call internal, start saying negative things, and it was the opposite. And the guys that needed to step up and make plays did. Jordan Waters will tell you he was mad at himself that he fumbled, and there was a lot going on in his head, and look at how he responded. He used that energy to play better in the second half. It was great to see how he finished runs in the second half. He was a man possessed, and sometimes when guys make mistakes, it really can waterfall into more and more and more negativity. And I felt like the guys used, their energy the right way in the game. And KC was electric, and every time he had a chance to make a play, he did. And so, when the guys you're leaning on can make plays, Davin with a sack, TFL on a third down, those are the guys that you count on. And it was great to see that.
Thank you.
Jaden?
Dave, we talked about the iPads and the in-helmet communications, but what about the 2-minute timeout? How did that end up working or impacting the game on Thursday?
Yeah, I think I've said this. We spent a lot of time going back to February as a staff, each of us calling different NFL coaches, going on NFL trips, visiting with NFL staffs, looking at their time charts. And so we were very involved in decision-making around the 2 minutes in both halves and what we should or shouldn't do, and also what we think the other sideline is going to do. And in some cases they did, in some cases they didn't. But it's an extra timeout that obviously is going to come at a certain time no matter what. And it allows you to do certain things. So there was a lot of thought around it. I felt very prepared. I know our staff felt very prepared, our players, but it is new and it is different. And it does allow you to use a timeout potentially a different way, knowing that you have another one in the bag later.
But you felt like the outcomes after those timeouts, you thought they were good?
Yeah, I thought they were really good.
Noah?
Hey, Coach, you talked about the running game in the first half, and it obviously wasn't up to your expectations. What kind of led to the struggles, I guess, and what was the difference, especially in the fourth quarter, being able to get going?
It's one thing each play, offense, defense, special teams is 11-man football. And that's the thing when 10 guys do something well and one doesn't, it's usually that one that creates the problem on the play. And if you go through the plays where we weren't what we call efficient, it was one guy, and one guy not getting his first foot in the ground the right direction, and so the guy beats him across his face, or it's one guy leveraging a block the wrong way. It's running back maybe being a little too quick on his path and not letting the block set up. And there's always one thing, and I just thought we started playing 11-man football better as the game went on, and that's the biggest thing. And it doesn't matter what side of the ball you're looking at when it comes to mistakes or not performing well. It's usually not a defense or an offense. It's usually a player within that needs to play it along with the other guys. It's, that's what makes football so interesting, because it takes 11 guys in unison to have success. It really does. And we learned a lot in that game. Like I said, I think the first game and really the first two or three, sometimes you're chasing because sometimes you're playing a new staff and you don't have a lot of film to study. And so a lot of things you prepare for, you're not using or going up against in the game. And so we were caught off guard, I felt like, a couple times with some things they were doing up front that they hadn't put on film. And that's good by them and bad by us. And we got to do a better job preparing for the unknown.
And then kind of going off that as a follow-up, you talk about playing a lot of new faces. How big is the jump between week 1 and week 2 when you're playing with a roster, with this many new guys on it?
It can be big. I think that's a common said thing that, the biggest improvement you have is game 1 to game 2. I don't really believe that. I think you can have a huge improvement in every game if the roster takes what we call their one mores personally. What did you just put on tape that you have to correct by the end of the next week? And can you do that? Can 11 guys each have one thing better in their game? And when you take that to heart and all of a sudden you have an 11% improvement, per player, there's a big jump. And you saw that for us in the middle of the season last year. It didn't happen in week 1 or week 2. Obviously, we're playing against a way different opponent this week. The skill level, the scheme, their success, their all those things. And so naturally you think you got to get 100 times better. You don't. You need to play 11-man football. And we need to do that. How many plays in a row? Can we play together and improve 1% every player on the field in a certain area, fundamentals, technique, focus, whatever that thing may be, eye discipline. Each player's got an area of his game that he knows coming out of our grading session with them. This is an area I got to fix, because we know, just like our opponent knows, what we put on film. And so game plans are always built around, what you see schematically and what you see personnel wise. And as a player, you need to, protect the roster, protect the game plan by doing your part, to make that game plan fail by improving in those areas. We have to do that with scheme and tendencies, but players have to do that with fundamentals, technique, and effort.
Murph?
Thanks, Dave. Two kind of related questions. One, and I know every game is televised these days, but is it special to be on ABC in that primetime slot? Do you feel it? Does it feel any different as a coach, as a team? And then relatedly, you've talked about that you kind of laid out the playoff scenario to your team before the season, what it would take to make it where you need to be. Do you talk about that at all during the season, or is that put away now and you just go out and play?
Yeah, I think first of all, to your first question, yeah, it's great exposure for the program. Anytime you're on the nationally televised game, that's really good, not just for NC State football, for NC State as a university, for our athletic department, for our state, for our fan base, for our alums. All of that matters, the more you're exposed that way, the better for the program. But that doesn't play into anything that we're talking about with the guys. To play well, regardless of how you're televised, it's going to come down to the process of preparation and practice habits and recovery, sleep, nutrition, hydration. All these things are going to turn into the score at the end of the game. And so that's where we spend our time. As far as the rankings and all that, that was all preseason, January, February. Our guys know, and they know right now it's a one game at a time process, one game at a time. No seasons are determined in week 1, week 2. This thing's going to go all the way through November. It's going to get blown out of proportion by you guys because that's your jobs. And, people are quitting on certain teams already. And it's a long season. There's a lot that's going to happen. We went from 4-3 to 9-3 last year, you know, kind of forgotten to popular. And, you know, so a lot can happen in the course of a season. But every game on your schedule is a game that you want to win. And every game on your schedule is a game that's meaningful, you know, and this one's no different.
Ethan.
Coach, you mentioned Tennessee's talented defensive front, and it's going to give Anthony Belton a good chance to go up against some talented edge rushers. What have you seen from him in week one and the preseason that just makes you confident in that matchup?
Yeah, I'm excited for AB. Excited for Jacarius Peak. All of our linemen have great one-on-one matchups, you know, this week. It's going to be a really competitive box. There's no doubt about it. And AB's ready for the opportunity. I know all these guys are excited to play against good players. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch. You know how much I like watching the line of scrimmage. This game's going to be won and lost in that box. There's no doubt about it, you know. And so those guys are excited about playing against them, and I'm sure they feel the same way. You know, you got to play in that box every snap with great technique, great strain. You've got to be fluid with the guys you're playing next to, and communication's got to be really good. And there's just got to be an elite level of technique and strain that's happening, because you can against, you know, any good pass rusher, and we'll see others this year. You can't be off. You know, you've got to really do a good job with your fundamentals and your technique, and, you know, knowing if you're to the slide, away from the slide, if you got people helping you in protection, if you're alone. But those guys will be ready.
Thanks.
James.
Yeah, Dave, you mentioned Justin Jolie already, his performance. I know the numbers catching the ball really pop, but just evaluate him as a blocker in week one.
Yeah, I mean, he's straining on the perimeter. He's working hard. You know, obviously, you're never going to say a guy's a polished player all the way. There's things he needs to do better, displacing guys. But Justin's playing at a high level. He's playing fast. He's playing with confidence. I hated to see his touchdown come off the board because that was a great play design. And yeah, I'm excited about Justin, and I'm proud of him. He's worked really hard. It's funny, we were watching UConn against Tennessee because they played him last year, and he was in the film. And so he's done a good job developing since he's gotten here. I was like, dude, I saw you on film. You looked a lot smaller, and he's gained a lot of weight. He's beefed up his upper body, and because of that, you're seeing him be able to fit into the run game a certain way that allows him to be physical.
And just to follow up, I know you were able to get Matt some snaps at tight end in week one as well. Just kind of evaluate his play. I know week one for him at that position.
Yeah, you know, Matt did some really good things. I think as the game went on, he got better and better. I mean, that was his first real game play. He played 40+ snaps in that game. And I think he really learned the value of, you know, how precise his footwork needs to be. He's got great strain all the time. But, you know, when you're a little bit behind in your first step, or you step under yourself, you false step, and you give that guy an opportunity, you're going to lose. And so just how detailed he needs to be in his footwork. And I know that's an area Matt will work tirelessly to improve this week. You know, having, like I've told you guys, having him and Isaiah Shirley as bigger tight ends brings some different things. And Coach and I will do a lot, you know, in the game plan to make it hard for people. You know, that's what he does. And I think Matt will build and build and build. The more you play, the more things start to slow down, and you can anticipate things better, and your technique comes with that. So I'm excited for Matt. I was proud of him in his first game. Obviously, there's some blocks that he can be better in, and I know he'll improve.
Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
JC.
A lot of attention will be about Nico, but Dylan Sampson is obviously a very huge part of what they do too. How important is it to set up second and long, third and longs?
Yeah, I mean, when you're playing against an up-tempo, explosive offense, not allowing efficiency is a big deal. You know, I think as those guys get first downs, the tempo only gets harder and harder. And so creating what we call off-schedule play calling for them is important, you know, whether that's a efficient first down or an efficient second down on defense, creating long yardage third downs, and then getting off the field. Like I said before, that's the down where, you know, if you can keep their offense on the sideline because you are winning the conversion downs and creating winnable third downs through first and second down defense, Their running backs are good players. I mean, they protect the football. They don't fumble the football. They run hard. You know, they don't have a ton of schemes. Their guys are good at blocking them. The backs are good at timing them up. And they do a good job, you know. And so it's, like I said, it's a talented group with a good scheme, and they're balanced. You know, a lot of these spread teams you play are not. They're not committed to running the football, and Tennessee clearly is.
Jaden,
I know guys always say, you know, it's just another game, yada yada. But you have about 10 or 12 guys who are from the Charlotte Metro. How significant do you think it's going to be for them just to play back home this weekend?
Yeah, I think we have 20 from Charlotte. And so,
Oh,
yeah,
do
it's
you
fun.
really?
Yeah, it's fun for them to be home. No question about it. Playing in an NFL stadium too. I think all the players in both sidelines, those are great experiences for the teams. Um, but yeah, I mean, to play back in your home city for the guys that are from that area, it's always going to be special, and to do it in a stadium where they grew up cheering for that team in some cases, probably adds to that as well. But it's an important recruiting area for us. You know, we've always had success recruiting in Charlotte, and so our roster is represented that way.
Rob,
Yeah, I have a two-parter, sir. First, in regards to NC State, I know obviously everybody was marveling at Concepcion, but the other guys, Justin, Noah, Jordan in the fourth quarter, your other running backs in the first three quarters, do you feel like the pieces are sort of there for a multifaceted offense?
I do, yeah. I thought, you know, Noah and Wesley did a nice job catching the football. Terrell Anderson came in, made a nice catch on the sideline. Keenan Jackson was open on a post. That was one of the plays we missed on a completion. And so we have a good rotation there. Dakari Collins, obviously, is a guy that can go, make plays on the perimeter and is a really good blocker. And then there's a rotation in the backfield. I thought Kendrick ran the ball really hard. You know, Hollywood had a couple explosive runs. And so there is depth and a rotation that allows for guys to stay fresh. It's definitely not going to be an offense that can only go through one player. You see that with Joe Lee. I mean, he would have had over 100 yards without the penalty and a touchdown. The outside guys, you know, were catching the ball down the field. And that's what we wanted. You know, we wanted to be a lot harder to zero in on, you know, from a personnel standpoint. We knew we had a special player in KC, and to put pieces around him, you know, where if the feature of the defense is being heavy in the slot, you've got some weapons elsewhere for the quarterback and a rotation, so that if somebody's, you know, tired and goes out of the game, the next guy ends productive. And so that was a big emphasis in our recruiting, and the guys did a nice job bringing in some talent.
Western Carolina is a really good team. Tennessee, obviously, this will be a leap in terms of athleticism and such. Do you see value in this game from a national perspective, not only from a national perspective, but also say 2 weeks later you have a game down in Death Valley? Does this game give you value down the road as well?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, this is one of the most talented, if not the most talented rosters we'll face, you know, and in the regular season for sure. And so there's value in that, you know, your players going up against elite guys on their sideline. There will be crowd noise. You know, I know it's a sold out game and both teams have sold their allotments. And so you're going to have some noise, and obviously Death Valley is going to be a loud place to play. So it's a great game from the standpoint of getting us ready for the ACC and being on the road and crowd noise against Clemson in week 4. But each one of these games, like every one of them, is a building block, you know, for what's coming. And if you're not getting better each week, then you got a problem as a football team. And we got to get a lot better from
Thank
week
you,
1
sir.
to week 2.
Jordan,
Hey, Dave, you touched on how dynamic of a quarterback that Nico is. That game against Chattanooga is really the only game he's played in where the offense was tailored to him, that he had all of their offensive weapons available. When you do only have kind of that one game to go off of, how does that impact the scout on him?
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of leaning on the Iowa game for some of it. You know, you look at their spring game knowing that that's DNA and kind of vanilla, and then you have the opener, and he only really played a half of football. So, but you can watch Coach Heupel's offense for a long time, you know, and see what it is. And The players within it obviously are going to be what makes it go, but the scheme itself, it hasn't changed a lot over the years. It's just the guys that are playing in it and what they're capable of doing. But it's week 2, and week 2 in a game where they only played 50% of the game with their starters, and so there's going to be some adjusting. There's going to be some unknowns, and that's just how it is. And it's going to be the same for them with us. Our offense is going to evolve too as the season goes on from week 1 to week 2 in particular. So that's part of the coaching. You get on that sideline and now you have the iPads, you see what they're doing, and our guys got to do a great job within the game and winning their one-on-ones, tackling and using the rules and tools of each side of the ball to adjust to things that we didn't practice.
Going to take 2 more. Noah.
Coach DJ Jackson got in for the first time against
Yeah.
Western Carolina. What's it been like, I guess, watching him over the last, 2 or 3 years, going through what he's gone through and then finally get to see him, out there on the field in uniform?
First of all, I'm really happy for him. It's been a tough 3 years. He got hurt his senior year of high school before he got here, and then he was hurt 2 consecutive years for us. And so it's been a long time since DJ could be himself on that football field. I'm really happy for him. And he's playing well. He's straining. He brings a different type of guy into the game than B. Cleve. And the thing about him, he is really strong. And so you see him, he's a little smaller, obviously, than Brandon, but man, is he strong and he's quick. And so there's some things there, if you're a center, where you got different types of players coming in the game at you, and they bring different skill sets. And just from a personal side, it's been I'm proud of him, man. He's been through a lot. It's hard. It's hard being hurt once, 3 times. And so he's been through a lot mentally, emotionally, spiritually through this journey. And I'm happy for him and looking forward to seeing him continue to get better.
Corey.
Dave, depth chart just released, and Devin Boykin once again not on that depth chart. Is there any update on where his status currently stands, and any news on Jihad Carter and where he stands going into this game too?
Yeah, Devin's out for the month. His timeline is to be back sometime in October. Can't really give you a date on that because, every month you kind of reassess where guys are at as they get to this stage of the ACL recovery. Jihad will play. He's ready to go. He practiced last night. And like I said, after the game, he could have played Saturday. We just felt like it was best to get him 1 more week to be back 100%.